I wonder how many times I've said that I want to thank you for taking the time to learn about the methods of the Shadow Scout. The Shadow Scouts have a long history with the Leap and Apache, in which the sneakiest people most people know about, as far as the Native Americans go, are the Apache Scouts. The Apache Scouts were literally invisible and could get away with anything. The elite of the Apache Scouts were the Shadow Scouts. The Shadow Scouts were undetectable to the regular Scouts and had extra levels of training and natural ability. But one of the things which releases natural ability is ethics. So if you've read the ad copy that goes with this, and we're including this with the manual, it starts out with, do you want to impress your friends and be the life of the party, or remotely influence positive change for both groups and individual people near you and afar? It goes on to say, do you want to control others so they instantly do your bidding, or liberate them from their automaticity? The copy is really, really simple, and it starts out with a challenge. What do you want? What is the result that you have in mind? That is a very powerful question that you want to ask yourself often. The level of ethics which release power are what we're going to start with here. We talked about this in our fake psychic course, which we got a lot of really neat reviews. We didn't sell as many of those as we thought we would at first. It's still available, at least for now. But the people that got it really enjoyed it, and one of the things that they enjoyed was the function of ethics, the way we revealed that in that course. And we have to start with that here as well. Excuse me. So if we're going to play with this whole idea of remote influence, we're going to discover a few things. First of all, the lower the level of your motivation, the less power you have. Quite simply, if you do want to impress your friends and be the life of the party, you're not going to have much power. If you want to control others so they instantly do your bidding, again, you're not going to have much power. If you want oversexed teenage cheerleaders or their soccer moms to do your bidding, jumping through hoops on cue, you're not going to have much power. Will you become famous? Perhaps. Look at some of the people out there in the persuasion fields. Look at Hitler. But you're not going to have much power. You're not going to have power that lasts. You will have power that people can learn from, and hopefully you'll learn from it as well. So on the other hand, what we want to do is we want to consider some ethical applications of this technology, because but what I mean by ethics is not that you follow a certain code necessarily. One of the things that comes up often in the honor coaching sooner or later, when we're talking with people, we tell them, at least my thoughts on this are, the 10 Commandments were not made to be commandments. They're made to be, they're a gauge. If I'm functioning in a level of power, I don't want to screw my neighbor or his wife. If I'm functioning from a level of power, I will not take divinity in vain. If I am functioning at a level of power, I'm not going to steal, because the world is mine, and what I need will show up. And it always does. So what we want to do is we want to align ourselves with power, first of all. So, and by the way, hey, there's nothing wrong with, sexuality, for example. Well, that's how we started the ad copy. Do you want oversexed teenage cheerleaders to do your bidding, or their soccer moms? That's a different ambiguity. When we consider that, it's okay to get the girl. If you really want to get the girl, have it in your intention to get to know her as a person. And your skills will be far more powerful. You can use this stuff, you can use any of this persuasion, NLP-based material to have people do your bidding. But it's going to hurt you long term. And on the other hand, you can do this so the universe opens up its oyster to you. And literally, I wake up and I decide, this is what I need today. And vehicles manifest for that to happen. That doesn't mean I don't have to do some work. That doesn't mean I don't have to do some anchoring, perhaps. But when I anchor in an area, and what I want to do is anchor in lust and desire. Okay, cool. That'll work for a time. There's one very popular trainer out there who his entire program is based on that. And he's pretty famous. He's very well known. And he's also very tall. And that's okay. He gets a lot of people started. One of the things I've noticed, though, is after they get started with him, they either do his stuff and it works, and they keep doing it, and oftentimes they tend to get bored with it. And I've had many people show up on our doorstep up here basically with a, hey, look, there's got to be more to life than this. I can score with any girl I want. I can make a ton of money. There's got to be more to it than this. And that's why people show up here. So we want to talk about power. Power comes from the most obvious example that I work with people on the phone with almost constantly. And it seems to be pandemic in our society. People want results, and that wanting is down in the level of force. A book that I would strongly suggest that you get is Power versus Force by David Hawkins. The chart in it will make a ton of sense to you if you're playing with this material, and it'll change your life. So if we anchor in want, That's cool. But because want is in a level of force, want will always have some sort of counter want out there. I want to go see him, but I want to stay home. I want to take drugs, but I want to stop taking drugs. On the other hand, if we anchor in willingness, and willingness is the attitude of being willing to allow this to be in my life. I'm willing to have a beautiful woman in my life that I can have a relationship with and enjoy myself with on all levels. And I'm willing to do what it takes to allow that to happen. I want to make that happen versus I'm willing to do what it takes to allow that to happen. Huge differences. Huge differences. We just got a message from a fella who was using some of our other material that fits in so nicely with this, and that's the Essential Drills material. He's using the Essential Drills material, and he's noticing, he was thinking about an old friend, and an old friend pops into his life. Boom, instantly. This is how this stuff happens. He didn't control the old friend. He happened to, and he told me, he says, John, I was someplace where I never go. He happens to be in a place where he never goes because he wants to do these drills. His body draws him to this certain spot, and he bumps into an old friend. So we're modeling wanting, and we're modeling willing. Willing is so much more powerful, and I encourage you to play with that. So let's start there, and we'll move on to track 2. So one day we were teaching this to a fella named Bobby, and Bobby was a pretty swell fella, and one of the things that he did was he went out and tried to use this stuff in a way that wasn't entirely useful. The methods themselves are very, very powerful. So one of the things that Bobby did was he went out and he used this stuff from a level of wantingness, and it worked, and he got a girl. The neat thing, though, out of the girl that he got, it was not a good relationship, according to most people. But it did give him something that he needed to learn. He got to apply this stuff later on, and he got a relationship, which is pretty darn cool. He had a relationship with both girls, by the way. The first one turned out to be a relationship that was very adversarial. And his intent when he was using these processes, these little wee methods, was adversarial. So that's what he got. So first rule, what you put in is what you're going to get out of this stuff. So that's one of the reasons why we function from the level of willingness at first. Now, you can induce a state of wantingness in someone. Okay, and one of the best ways to do that is to have to really want them to have that state too. Now, one out of two things are going to happen. They're either going to want what you want, or want not to want what you want. I hope you can follow that. Or both. They'll actually want it, but they won't want it, and you'll have this intense desire there. Now, on the other hand, my question to you is, what are you willing to help them engage in while engaging it yourself? In other words, if you want someone to be out of control, are you willing to experience out of controlness with them? And that's not a bad or a good thing, it's just something. So the first question that I want you to start asking yourself is, what is it that you are willing to help them engage in while engaging in it yourself? So I go out to the bar, and there's a girl at the bar, and she looks lonely. And I'm walking over to the bar, right? And I feel an emptiness. I localize it to her. So I'm walking over to the bar, and I feel an emptiness, and it's localized on her. And there's a point on the bar, and she cannot see me. But what I start doing, she's 20 feet away, and this is a nice area to start. So she's about 20 feet away. And what I do is I place my finger in the bar, and I imagine that I'm touching her where it's most appropriate to. Okay, not where I feel it's appropriate to, but where it is most appropriate to. I imagine I'm touching her where it's most appropriate to. And I gently am paying attention to the kinesthetics on that finger. That's all. What I've done, okay, she cannot see me. I've managed to match her breathing, okay, by intent. And you can do this across the country, by the way. I can just intend to match Jack's breathing. And instantly, my breathing will start to shift. And I'm going to assume it's matching his, just for the sake of argument for right now. So, by the way, you can try to do this to prove it works or prove it doesn't work. Well, you know, John, I want to prove that I can get results. And you've just entered into the world of force. Because force requires proof. If we go up to the area of power, we can assume something. We can assume love is much more powerful than hate. And it is. And there's billions of examples of it. If you doubt that, you probably shouldn't even be listening to this course. Because there's evidence of that all around you. And if you need more evidence, give me a call. Feel free to. 724-963-1755. So when you're playing with this stuff, so I'm walking up to the bar, and I feel something. And it's not something that's originating within, let's say, me. And I localize it to a girl at the bar who cannot see me. By the way, she's sitting about 20 feet away. I match her breathing. And then I touch the bar. And my intention is to be touching her Notice we're changing it a little bit here. My intention is to be touching her where it is most appropriate. And then the results happen. How do I know the results happen? There's a shift in her physiology. What the Hindus call chakras all start lining up differently from where she was. Okay, she flicks her hair, then she looks around and notices me standing there. And listen to the order that that happens in. So when we're playing with this stuff, we're not in there making pictures and wanting and desiring. Okay, I'm noticing shifts. I'm noticing shifts. That's one of the key things that you want to do while you're playing with this stuff right here. So you want to get out of your own way. I could imagine, I was reading an article where a guy's saying, when you're doing something, you imagine that you're touching her on her, and you're stroking, and then there's, yeah, okay, cool. And again, I go back to Bobby. Bobby went out with a low-level intent, and he got a low-level result. He did get a result, and it was ultimately low-level. When he shifted his intent up to willingness, okay, what am I willing to help you experience while experiencing it myself? That's one of the keys right there. I've had people substitute willing for want, but if you want to go into a good definition of willingness, it involves what am I willing to help you to experience while I'm experiencing it myself. In other words, I had a guy one day I went to years ago, and he was an auto mechanic. I was selling credit card processing at the time. And the guy needed to take credit cards. There was no way around it. I had a good deal for him, so we set it up so he could do it. And as part of the process that we went through, involved anchoring. And I anchored willingness to go forward and use the product. And he was willing to do that. A short time later, he had an accident, and he had to go out of business. My boss tried to get him to void the contract, which was very uncharacteristic of my boss at the time, because he knew the guy was going to be locked into a 4-year contract, and he didn't need to be, because he was in the accident and he was going out of business. It was going to cost him a lot of money. The guy was still willing to proceed with the contract. He was willing to stand up to his word. I got on the phone with him and helped him to realize that I was willing to let the sale go because he needed to focus his energy elsewhere. The area of willingness versus wantingness. If we would have anchored in wantingness, he would have wanted to be in the sale. He wanted to take the credit cards like we presented it to him. And when he got hurt, I went out of this. Willingness is far more lasting in its result. And it was easy because my boss, I want you to think about this, my boss wanted him out of the contract, but the guy was willing to proceed. I got on the phone and was willing to let it all go. I didn't want it to go because I could have used the money. I was paid commission. I got it. And I was willing to let it go because I know how well I'm taken care of. The willingness made the shift. And it took a whole 12 seconds. So factor willingness in. You may want to listen to this several times to get this. Or you may be willing to explore this so that we can move through this together.